Hello, I'm Manjavidze, CEO at Crosscreators, Augmented Reality Marketplace, where we help brands to hire AR creators to get their projects on demand. In our crosstalk, today we will be covering augmented reality advertising, and our guest is super advertiser Rich Watson, founder of world-class agency Augmented Hype. So, hello, Rich. I'm so excited to have you here. And we are covering very interesting topic, which is like augmented reality advertising. So, but to get started, it's really interesting for people to introduce yourself and your company, Augmented Hype.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I talk about augmented reality and ads on a daily basis. So this is going to be, awesome for me. So I'll probably nerd out about it, especially with you. So my name's Rich Watson. I've been doing Facebook advertising now for between 6 and 7 years. And I basically started Augmented Hype out of necessity for working with marketing agencies and then working with clients who weren't really able to produce highly converting creatives. It was always quite a difficult process. They either needed to get, outside help, or they needed to have someone in-house to create them for themselves. It was always quite a difficult process. So I started to look at other formats, and I saw that augmented reality ads had come out. It was a couple of years ago, actually, 2018, I believe. But no one was really using them, so it was really interesting. So I basically started Augmented Hype because I really wanted to put augmented reality ads to practice within the e-commerce industry. And that's basically where it sort of led me. So I'm now working with agencies and working with brands to basically come up with augmented reality ad strategies for their clients. So really like trying to find, what their audience are, what sort of experience they want to have, how they can build a relationship, instantaneously, basically. And, what that actually looks like in terms of an augmented reality sort of strategy.
Right.
I think.
It is, but even if with this big hype about augmented reality, no one really knows about advertising and their strategies. Can you just explain to our people, like, what are augmented reality ads and how we can do it?
Yeah, so I find them just amazing tool because, putting it as simply as possible, it's a way of bringing the person into the ad in an immersive experience, as immersive as possible. Because as marketers, advertisers, what you're trying to do is, one, you're trying to pattern interrupt. You're trying to really grab someone's attention within the Facebook feed, because often it's, they're looking for information from their friends or what their family are doing and things like that. And they're not necessarily in the headspace to buy as if they would be in Google or maybe another platform where the intent's a bit higher. But with augmented reality ads, it's a really unique way of pulling people into the experience, into the ad, and making them the subject of the ad. So for me, that's not only that as a pattern interrupt, but it feels so much more like a stronger experience and relationship builder to the brand than any other ad you can really have. And I do a lot of comparisons, and I'll share some metrics a bit later on, between sort of conventional creative, as I call it, static video, things like that, and augmented reality ads. And I'm not saying, you should only do augmented reality ads, because I think it should be part of a broader sort of strategy.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to look at and, take learnings from what you're already doing in your marketing already, or what you already know about your customer base already, and try and give them an experience with your brand as strong as possible, or with your client's brand, and give them a really lasting impression of what you can offer them, basically, and how you can solve problems.
And main thing about augmented reality ads is that people love it, and people love it only because they become heroes of the advertising. So they put themselves in the center. That's why they love it. So the main thing, like, marketers always ask me, why should we care about augmented reality? Because, like, we're doing this, that, all the kind of ads, for example, video production. Compared to video production, like, what kind of benefits do we have with AR ads?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, and the results I've seen and the case studies I've seen, augmented reality ads, basically compared to video specifically, for where it really depends on how much people know about Facebook ads. But obviously, when you're using a video, one of the metrics you're looking at is actually the engagement within the video, because you can obviously use that data later on. You can say, hey, Facebook, retarget people who've watched this video for 30 seconds or more, or 50% of the video, 60%, et cetera, et cetera. And it's often quite difficult to get a good chunk of data for people who engage with the video for a really, really long time, unless that video production is really on point and builds a relationship really, really fast. But what I've seen with the case studies and the stuff we've done is the average viewing time of the instant experience, which is basically the AR ads sort of housing, it tends to be about 40 seconds, which is double that of the average video view time. And bear in mind that a lot of people's videos actually really only get people's attention for about 6 seconds, because people are just glance, as I said, going through the feed. They have no sort of intent to buy things. They're just sort of grabbed by something. Maybe they grab their attention for a small time. But augmented reality, as in comparison with that, is taking your attention for almost a minute, basically, which is an incredible amount of time to build a relationship and leave a lasting impression with them. So I think that's probably the best. That's probably the top metric to look at if you're comparing them with video ads. Everything else really, along the sort of conventional creative side of things, is it has a better engagement rate. So you're basically pulling people into the experience at a higher rate than you would pull people through to the site that you would normally go through to. So depending on how you use that attention, obviously within the augmented reality ad sphere, you can have brand awareness, traffic, conversions, and then there's a fourth one, reach. So really, depending on how you're using their attention, you could basically actually get more people to the site through the AR experience than you would have a conventional creative. So that's probably the next thing to sort of say. But yeah, there's a whole host of other things, which I guess we can go through if we talk a bit more about metrics later. But just far more appealing and far more eye-catching, basically.
Before we jump to the metrics. The question may arise to our listeners: how many categories are there? If they can imagine, what types of AR ads do we have right now?
So you can, it keeps expanding, so I'm probably missing some with my list. So the ones I know about are try-on ads, which are basically the most popular one. You have ones that are sort of aesthetic overlays, which are a little bit different to try-on, because try-on usually uses some sort of facial tracking. So aesthetic is really it's still tracking your face basically, but it's putting sort of makeup filters on, colors, and it can also be your surroundings and things like that. Maybe some sort of icons or some animation happening.
Try-on is basically for e-commerce brands, right?
Right.
Specific. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think all of these probably would count for e-commerce. It really depends on that strategy you're using. So I saw an amazing one for a cosmetic brand, but I don't remember what it was now. But they didn't actually do the aesthetic of the makeup wasn't the main thing. The main thing was giving you this persona, and it had 3 personas. I honestly can't remember who the brand is, but it was warrior or princess, or there's another one. And each of them had this sort of motif, this feeling to them, that sort of backed up what that set was trying to do of the make. I'm not very technical with makeup terms, but the palettes, that's the word, palette. So they had a different persona for each palette, and it was amazing because it's not your standard, just trying to put colors and see how it looks.
And straightforward, call to action to buy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's do I want to be a warrior, or do I want to be a princess, or these different sort of these different personas, and you can really decide from that on. But yeah, there's the other ones for e-commerce. One really big one is overlaying within your space. So using the other camera, the back-facing camera, actually overlaying. IKEA have used it, and other places have used it, where you can actually see furniture, or you can see canvases on walls, paintings, all sorts of stuff like that. And people have not touched the surface of what that can do as well. There's so much more that can go on there. Also, one of the ones I like the most is the portal filter, which I think is absolutely awesome, where basically you can pop an experience can pop up, and it can basically take you almost into a virtual space that they've created within the AR experience. Mm-hmm. So it's somewhere between VR and AR, I feel, because it's within your space, but then you can actually go into it. So this window pops up, or
You mean portals?
Yeah, and you could just go into it. And those look so cool. And I can see so many different practical applications for that because you're literally taking people into your world that way.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah. And the magic of AR is that you don't need this headset and you don't need to lose your reality. You can go 100%. In another reality, but not by losing your actual one. So it's really great, but we are talking about augmented reality, but it's not really easy to imagine all this stuff. Can you please show off some kind of like case studies you have right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I have one in particular. Sort of the best example I have is try-on, and it really basically this is like the comparison, the metrics I was talking about with the sort of conventional creatives they were using before. And if you want me to share my screen, I'll quickly go through it on here. So, you need to make me host or something.
Oh, sorry for that. Now you.
Otherwise, yeah. I mean, I could talk through it, but I don't know if it's really going to do it justice. Awesome. So yeah, let me know if you can see a cute baby.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically, this brand, a very established brand, and they have, they basically do marketing within Australia, America, UK, I believe, Europe, all over the place. They're definitely not like brand new. And actually their ads are were doing pretty well. But they did have an issue. So the co-founder, well, actually the owner came to me and basically said that they had issues with sizing and style objections. So a lot of mums and stuff, and obviously at the time actually it's back in that now, but they were going through a lot of lockdowns in Australia, and they're going through them now actually as we record this. It was very difficult for people to be able to get sort of eyewear protection for their child. So that's basically what it is. It's UV protection for a child in the form of these sunglasses called babyators. So super cute, it's like aviators and babies mixed together. And there was a lot of people sort of dropping off because they weren't sure, the sizing, the style, they weren't really sure what would fit their child. And it was very difficult to be able to know without actually being able to actually try them on. So they wanted like a creative that answered those questions basically. So yeah, the results that they were getting were not too bad. They're getting between 50 and 60 Australian dollars. So that was about 2 pairs per order. The CPA was about half of that, so $20 to $30. But they wanted the ads to be more immersive, obviously letting people try on and like really know what the glasses will look like. And also they wanted to be able to get more user-generated content, because all the content they'd use, like as the example you can see here, is really, really nice, really clean, really polished, but it doesn't feel like native. It's always good in marketing to have those two, because you may see that, more clean, polished stuff converts higher up at the top of the funnel, and maybe more user-generated works at the bottom, or maybe vice versa. It can sometimes work the other way. Basically, that's the mission. So this is what we did. We basically created this try-on filter, where you can see me giving modeling of it there. Basically where you could try on 4 pairs at once, and you could basically have 4 pairs up on the screen, and you tap on one and it takes it into the full screen. So if you go into the full example, you can see all 4 pairs there, and you can try them all on, and you can see how they do, what sort of colors, styles. So we only picked 4 of the top sellers for the actual experience. And it came with a very, very clear instructions of use, because as you know, like it's a very new thing. People don't fully understand it. Within the feed itself, this is how it actually looks. You see an example as you would like a normal ad, and then this sort of overlaying says try on. So when you tap that, then your Facebook feed on mobile, obviously it won't be on desktop, it'll open up your camera, which actually can be a little bit alarming. So it's always important to let people know that's what it's doing. And what it did was it enabled us to actually use user-generated content for the actual ad, the feed video that took people into the AR experience, which is really effective, because as we know, cute babies definitely going to grab people's attention, who especially have babies. And it allowed people to try on 4 different pairs at once, and also zoom into each, so you could really have a good experience. And these are the results it got. So not only did it solve the objections about style and size, the filter actually ended up paying for itself within about $800 ad spend. So if you could think you're an agency owner or you're a brand owner and you're spending a certain amount on creative, you know that it's going to be able to pay itself back within, depending on how fast you're spending your ad spend, pretty quickly. Not only that, but it got a 58% higher click-through rate, which was, a very, very hard thing to beat. They're old creatives of super cute babies.
In this competition is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. How are you gonna beat that? You saw that baby, it's just super cute. So there's 50% increase on average order value as well. So this is not necessarily one we were expecting, but people ended up buying 3 or 4 pairs instead of buying 2 because they're able to see exactly what they look like. So this is like something I hadn't covered before in one of the metrics that I think is really important to highlight. Is you can really allow people to try on multiple things. Maybe you have matching pairs of things, or maybe you can bundle things together within the experience. You couldn't really do that with an ad unless you had a model or something like that. So this is amazing. And then because of that, we got 44% higher increase on ad spend. So results were really amazing. And sorry?
Only with this one campaign. It's amazing.
Yeah. So this campaign was actually done in isolation. So they created a new campaign for it and then actually ran the AR on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to directly compare to the other campaign it was going at the time. And they actually, I can share this with you. The only thing that actually stopped this creative, in its tracks was they had a celebrity endorsement of someone really famous in Australia with their child with the glasses on. So that actually just took over. But comparing, that's the only, I know I'm not going to say this because it's a bit claimy, but the only thing that could overtake it was a celebrity endorsement. Then you're doing pretty well because, you're basically making people the celebrity. So yeah, that was absolutely incredible. And it had the added effect of being able to also like reduce the amount of returns they saw. So I don't have facts on it here, but I know from Snap actually did a big consensus on this, that it actually leads to about 25% decrease in returns. And returns is something like, a $550 billion problem. So if you can imagine that number, 25% of it, it's 130 billion with a B. So, there's an incredible amount of uptake from this. It can be so many beneficial elements to it for sure.
Yeah, but the thing is that like about strategy, people quite don't understand what types of content they should use in AR. So I always tell them that it's no difference while you're working on your like classic advertising strategies. It's like new medium, and just you have to think about like new creative tool. So what do you recommend those kind of brands who just see the references, like some other case studies, but they don't have this idea how to make a content, types of content?
It's a really good question. So I would say the most important thing to try and take into account, and this is something you want to carry through to when you're actually creating the filter itself, is what do you want them to experience? What is the main pain point or something you're trying to overcome, basically? So within that one, it was the style and the sizing and things like that. And there are limitations with sizing on AR. You're not able to, depending on the head size, it won't change the shape. It's always going to be a set shape for now because it's early stages. But if you have something in mind, this is exactly like you said, that this is the same for any ad creative that you come up with. You need to come up with something that you're trying to get them to go away with from the experience. Mm-hmm. So whether it's that earlier example of having people sort of see themselves as these different avatars, the warrior princess one, if they see themselves, it's bringing something positive out of them in that way, or it's giving them like an answer with an experience, or it's, making them feel good about themselves or something like that. It's really, that's the most important thing you have. And it's a really good way of, because you're getting that person's attention for, 40 seconds or so, it's a good way of introducing yourself to them, with the actual brand colors or typography or something within the experience itself. You can have something that you can carry through to them that they'll be able to remember. But yeah, I think it's a very, I think my internet's a little bit choppy. I might have dropped out a little bit.
So you have many talks with different kind of brands. What are the main pain points on your side? How prepared these people are coming?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So most people are, if you're coming to AR for the first time, maybe you've seen it, Snapchat and Instagram sort of filters and things like that. One of the main things is actually the understanding of what it is and how it can actually impact, which I hope we've answered with some of the things we talked about earlier. The other is really like the use cases. So people within certain industries, because there hasn't really been a lot of case studies in this area, it's difficult for them to know, quantify it basically. They're like, okay, if I put X amount in, is it going to give me this out? And there's just not enough data specific to you to tell you that is so. But there's an abundance of actual case studies that Facebook have put out. I think Snapchat as well, maybe TikTok as well. And really, it's not so much thinking about the format itself. It's trying to think about how it compares in terms of engagement. Because if there's one thing you can guarantee with AR ads, is the engagement is going to improve. I mean, you can never say that we're definitely going to get a higher conversion rate, or we're definitely going to get more revenue, things like that. I think only Mark Zuckerberg could probably say that. But you can say that the engagement is higher because of all the reasons we covered earlier. It's just pulling people out, and there is a sort of novelty aspect of it at the moment as well, and coming into people understanding a bit more about the metaverse and where it's all going, and I believe this is the first iteration of it, because AR is overlaying our reality, so it's going to be the introduction. It's going to be the bridge between what we're experiencing now and what the metaverse will be. I say the metaverse, it just doesn't really exist right now, but that idea.
Yeah, people quite don't understand what is metaverse right now. Like, everyone's talking, there's so much hype, and no one can explain what is metaverse. So can you just be your idea? Like, for me, it's like mixture of these immersive technologies, and one of them is augmented reality. We can't have metaverse without augmented reality, virtual reality, XR. So what about you? How you imagine metaverse?
Yeah, I think you described it much better than I could. I think it's a way of creating an alternative reality that is going to basically amplify certain aspects of human creativity and human desires and things like that in a digital world. I don't know if that's a really good way of describing it, but that's how I feel about it. Because if you look at Instagram and what Instagram has become, and I know there's a lot of people that say there's a lot of bad sides to Instagram. I believe there's it's the same with anything. Everything grows, and there's always some negative effects and positive effects. But people do use it to highlight sort of more desirable traits about themselves. So that's one element. And I think the metaverse is going to be a definite element. It's going to be like an amplification of that. But at the same time, it's what's amazing about social networking and things like that is you're able to connect with someone like we are. I'm in Vietnam and you're in Georgia, and we're able to connect with each other and talk about this really specific thing with marketing and augmented reality, the thing that no one knows about. But if that didn't exist, then how would we have been able to contact each other before? And when the metaverse comes along, it's going to be even more easier to mix with like-minded people, share ideas, visually even. You're going to be able to paint in 3D and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of good things towards it. There's going to be a lot of negative things that people are looking at already. I know Facebook have Project Area, and they're looking at a lot of ethical elements of augmented reality and things that I think is amazing, because they want to be careful. Privacy is a very, very important thing as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be a really deep way of connecting with people and sharing ideas, and just being able to grow together, basically.
Mm-hmm. So to jump back on augmented reality advertising and its strategies, how is the process with you when a client comes to you? What should they know before coming to you? Should they have already made content and you are helping with advertising process like business manager using or?
Yeah, so really it's wide open for everyone. Anyone who sells a product or service, it's wide open for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the process of working with agencies who work with e-commerce specifically, just because it'll be easier to roll out and quicker to roll out for them because of just the application of the knowledge that I have for the last sort of 7 years or so. So if you're within the e-commerce space and if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about how augmented reality ads work, how you can start doing themselves, towards the end of this month, I'm actually going to be doing a free sharing session of about 20-25 minutes where I basically go through, a lot of the metric things we've gone through, but a little bit more detail. I'll go through more case studies as well, and basically show you, what the platform is, Spark AR and things like that, how you can actually, start to create this sort of thing for yourself, where to look, where to get inspiration, and, some basic strategies of how stuff to roll out. So I think that's probably the best route.
Great. It's really interesting. Also, I'm interested about like the main pain points they are having right now in your experience. Besides that, they want to stand out from the crowd. What are the other pain points? Do they manage to use Business Manager after contacting you, or you are the guy who manages afterwards?
I think one of the biggest things in Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising specifically is, the whole Apple iOS 14 thing rolled out sort of April last year. It was a big effect on a lot of advertising firms, marketing firms, brands, everything, because it really forced everyone to look back and focus on the fundamentals of marketing, and to actually use Facebook and Instagram advertising is more of a top-level marketing platform, and being able to pull people away from that into their own communities. So whether it's a Facebook group, an email list, something else, using it more to grab people's attention very quickly and go from paid advertising into something, that you're able to like track server side, whether it's email list or they're on your site or something like that. But for the advertising side of things on Facebook specifically, it became quite difficult to actually track a lot of different elements. So the whole events manager, anything from people leaving Facebook to going to your platform, anything all the way to purchasing and revenue, the tracking of that became very, it minimized a lot. The signal was lost basically because we weren't able to use as much data. So that basically meant that people needed a way of using on-platform data to actually use to have their retargeting, the lower funnel part of their marketing, still be quite strong, because that was always the thing that people relied on. Really, top of funnel ads were just to grab people's attention, and then lower funnel ads were for converting. That was a general consensus. But now you can't really rely on that so much anymore. But with augmented reality ads, you have this new data set basically with the instant experience, where you can actually track people who've been in your instant experience. So all of that stuff I said earlier about people being in the instant experience for 40 seconds, you can use that data for your retargeting list.
Yeah.
So you can use that in your lower campaigns. So you can. I came up with this thing called I posted about it on LinkedIn, called an AR ads mini funnel, and you could basically have 3 different audiences from your AR ads. So first is someone who clicked on the ad. Second is someone who watched the video feed, and then third is someone who watched, went into the instant experience. Yeah. And all 3 of those are slightly different segment of audience, because, for example, if they just clicked and they didn't, watch the video that you have, the example of the AR filter, then you can retarget them with a slightly different filter, or a slightly different education into the filter. Like maybe they didn't understand how to use it or something. If you got them to watch the video, but they didn't go into the instant experience or the AR ad, then maybe there was something in that video that put them off. And then once they are into the instant experience, they've gone a bit further, but they haven't maybe purchased or they haven't taken that next step, you can retarget them. So you can basically retarget those 3 different segments with slightly different advertising. Maybe another AR filter, maybe a different sort of creative altogether, different messaging, et cetera, et cetera. So things like that basically plugs the hole where you used to be able to target people looking at product page, add to cart with a lot more accuracy. you can't anymore, but you can take that whole process and step it back and use that on-platform data, which is still 100% sound. You know, there's been no effect there. And actually, as we know, Facebook/Meta want you to get people, you know, keep people on the platform, because obviously it gives them the best experience, and that's actually what they want in total. So what we've actually seen is that the CPMs for augmented reality ads compared to normal ads are like a third, or even sometimes even more than a third of the price, because no one's using them. Facebook prefers them because they keep them on the platform, and they're just very enticing to people. When your competitors aren't using, you know, AR ads, they're using video or something, they're seeing AR and, oh, cool, this is way more interesting. So therefore you're winning the auction, and Facebook's saying, okay, cool, this advertiser's good, give them a big tick and put their CPM.
And also, while you are advertising, there is not much competition in AR advertising. So you are not competing. So in less money, you reach more people.
100%, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a blue ocean right now. People need to jump on it.
Can we talk like just a little bit about metrics more? Like what types of metrics Facebook do track right now?
Yeah. So I've actually
conversion.
I'll share my screen again. But I got this metric comparison with that actual the case study I went through earlier. Of this, these are the results basically we saw within the ads. So yeah, this is what I was talking. So the conventional creative they had, video static creative, was getting CPM of like $50 before, which is pretty reasonable. If you're advertising in US, actually, it tends to be potentially higher than that. If you're doing lead generation, it's usually higher than that. So, you know, you can expect to reach 1,000 people, you're paying, you know, $50, $70, something like that. The AR ad brought a CPM of $10. So I think at one point it went to about 13, and then it dropped down to like, you know, 6 or 7 or something like that. So it averaged out about 10. So that was incredible. And a lot of that was to do with the creative engagement. You know, people were basically engaging at a 10 times higher rate than they would the conventional creative. And if you go back to the creative, you know, it was a super cute baby with sunglasses on. So a really hard thing to beat. This meant the CTR was a lot higher. So it was reaching about CTR of about 3 to 5%, where before it would hover around 1. And the conversion rate was, well, actually, it got to above 5%, but 5% average was what they were actually hitting. And they would normally, you know, they hit a normal conversion rate of 1 to 3%, which is normal within the sort of e-commerce.
The 5
yeah, it's nuts, right? And not conversion rate, sorry, the cost per acquisition was about half, because they normally, yeah, you saw they were doing like CPA of about half, sometimes a third. But it was hitting like, you know, 10, 15. And this is a really big one to cover. This isn't really a metric that you can look at on Facebook's as such. I mean, you can look at like quality ranking, where it's been broken down into engagement ranking and conversion ranking, etc. But the life expectancy of creatives, it really depends. There's so many different factors. But on average, people tend to get within the sort of, I did like, I asked quite a few agencies about this, and they tend to basically get new creatives for, you know, their clients for every 1 to every 3 months. And of course, sometimes there's always clients that you could have some creative running for, you know, 6 months or something like that. So it's actually fine. But the average is about 1 to 3 months. But with the AR ad, you can keep running it much, much longer, because it's not something that people get bored of. It's not something people start hiding. You know, it has this sort of first emerging sort of feeling to it. You know, not seen it before. And the cost of the creative, you know, to get a really, really good video production, something that sort of leads to the sort of conversion rates and click-through rates we sort of discussed, tends to cost quite a bit. Whereas, you know, AR ad filters can be, I mean, this is a ballpark really, but, you know, you can get them for like 5, 10, 15. I know some places charge a lot more, but it really depends on the complexity of the filter. But I'd say, you know, a simple filter, probably around 5K. And, you know, you can have one that just lasts, you know, half a year. And then even then you can go back to your creator and say, hey, can you just, put a Christmas hat on it? And then you can run it for Christmas. And you could, hey, can you put a love heart on it? These very small tweaks can make it very appealing for that current, whatever the sort of promotion you're running. So absolutely incredible. So
and
I think the main...
Sorry. And the magic, you can find any kind of freelancer today, which will do maybe much more less. So
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of really, really creative, really skilled people. They just don't have a platform to basically match with their brands. And it's really about knowing a little bit more about what sort of filter you're looking for, and having your marketing strategy figured out specifically for AR. And then it's a lot easier to actually then go to the creator and not rely. This is just something I'd say if anyone who's wanting to do this right now is don't rely on the creator to come up with a marketing strategy with AR, because creators are creative people.
Yes.
Like I'm a little bit of both. So actually that's why I'm suited for marketing. But creative people think in a different way to analytical people, for example. So if you're a marketing person, you think very analytically, in my mind. You can be very creative too. But creators won't know, most of the time, they won't have a marketing strategy. The ones who've definitely worked with big brands and they've come up with, AR ad marketing strategies, they're going to probably cost a lot more, but probably nowhere near like 50K or something like that. But that's what I would say, like have that in your mind. And I guess this is an answer to your previous question about what you should prepare. But yeah, have in your mind, like get some inspiration from, Spark AR galleries. You can have a look at Spark AR galleries and see all the sort of, filters people are creating. Have something in your mind of what you want and what you're trying to achieve with the experience. And then go to the creator and then say, really specifically what you want. And then of course they're going to have, the knowledge of knowing what sort of gestures and all the ins and outs.
They will advise you.
Yeah.
What are like opportunities here to end our call? People like to know what will happen in the future. So now we have this filter experience now on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat. There are also like Google Swirl and Google advertising, but like mainly for Facebook and Instagram filters, which is really super easy to implement in your strategy. What is the future there? How can it be more engaging in the future, in your opinion, of course?
I would say like something that would be really powerful, and I've not really tested this yet, is if you have influencers that you work with, micro or macro, really depends on your brand, of course. If you can get them even organically, it doesn't need to be an actual like AR ad specifically. I mean, you can always use a creative from the influencer for your AR ad, but that's another story. But using organic reach through your influencers would be very, very powerful. And
we're doing that on Crosscreators. We always say to brands to use influencers and this double power with influencer marketing and AR marketing. And it has really amazing results.
Yeah, the feedback loop is incredible. Like I think the Snapchat thing that I referenced, the study, I think you've seen it as well, where they said it's like people are 8 to 10% more likely to share an AR experience with friends and family.
Yes.
And when you just read that, you think that's like, you say normally they share to 2 people, they're sharing to 10 times that. So if you're getting an influencer to do it, imagine what the sort of sharing of that is going to be. And say that the AR experience took people somewhere, had some sort of call to action.
Mm-hmm.
Like free marketing, well, not free marketing, but it's like cheaper marketing. And then they'll share it, someone there show it. As long as you're making the person the subject of it and you're sort of elevating them in a positive way, you can get